Even though we as authors create the worlds, characters, and conflicts in our stories, we can forget the little details. That minor character from book 2 might come back in book 5, but suddenly we've moved the birthmark on his shoulder to his thigh. Eye color in particular is especially prone to these discrepancies. Your readers notice your details. They will be jarred out of their reading experience when you flub them, and they will point it out in reviews. That's why today I want to talk about why you need a book or series Bible. This is Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with your readers, because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. Let's start with what is a series Bible. A series Bible is a guide to your story. It's a cheat sheet for your book. It's where you put all of these little details so you don't forget or mess them up. Now, you don't have to call it a book series Bible. If Bible is too religious of a term for you, if you just don't like the connotations, you can call it your book series notes, or guide, or journal, or whatever term you want to use. I use Bible because book Bible sticks in my head. Usually a book series Bible is divided into different sections. Each character might get their own chapter, if you will. Same thing, each setting gets its own section. That way you can keep the different details straight for your different characters and settings. You can keep your book or series Bible in your computer, in a Microsoft Word document or something like that, so you can just search for a character or a detail when you need to look it up. Or you can handwrite them. I prefer to handwrite mine. So mine look like this. You can see there's not a lot of information for each section here. That's because I don't need a lot of reminders. I know what I have hardcore in my head I will never forget, and I know the little things I've made decisions on here and there that I might not remember. That's because I've written enough to know that about myself. I like to handwrite mine because I like to have the physical copy open in front of me and only the document I'm working on visible on my computer screen. I like my screen to not be very cluttered. I keep all of my series Bibles in an accordion folder based on the book series. So I labeled the tabs the names of my books. Something like that might work for you. You might keep a spiral notebook instead. You might have different files on your computer. There's no wrong way to take notes on your book series. You'll just have to find what works for you. Now that you know what a series Bible is, let's talk about your character chapters of your series Bible. So what do you actually put in there? Some things you might take notes of in your character sections are names and nicknames, physical descriptions, habits, ways of speaking or phrasing things, motivations, driving desires, relationship to other characters. So those are the type of details you might include, along with things like what's their favorite food. If you mentioned that, you might want to write it down, or their favorite color, or what color do they absolutely hate. Little details of the character that you made a split decision on for a bit of dialogue and might not have stuck in your mind. I do want to note a character chapter in your series Bible is different than a character sketch. A character sketch is something you use to develop your characters. They're also called character worksheets. Those are things you often fill out before you even start writing or when you're in the early stages of drafting. It's a way for you to get to know your characters. Your book or series Bible is something you fill out as you write. It's a reminder for you so that when you come back to your story after some time away from it, you don't mess up those little details. It's not a tool to help you develop your characters. So as you write, take notes. Here's an example of a section of one of my characters' chapters in that book series Bible. This is for Jeb from my Necromancer trilogy. Jeb. Says you see and you know. 6, when learned Izzy's a necromancer. Favorite color is green because of a blanket growing up. Sandy brown, longish hair. Wears contacts. Doesn't like belts. Has 2 older brothers and a younger sister. Is 24 years old in the present and 6 in the past. As you can see, that's not very long. There's not a lot there. Some of those are just reminders so I keep his age straight. Some of them I'm pretty sure I will remember, but I put them there anyway. Like I'm going to remember his brothers and his sister because they're in the story frequently too. But I might forget he has contacts, or I might forget why his favorite color is green. So I wrote those down. You should keep track of similar details for your story. So now that you know what the character chapters of your series Bible look like, let's talk about setting sections in your series Bible. Your setting section is similar to your character chapters. You should have a separate section for each of your major settings. This is where you put the specific details or nuances of your setting. Maybe you need to keep track of details from when your character interacted with one aspect of that setting. Maybe you need to take notes on the layout of what a room looks like. So here's an example of some things you might want to include in the setting sections of your series Bible. Names. Names of streets, shops, parks, benches, both official and unofficial names. The physical description. What that space means to your society and characters. A map of items within. What changes over the course of the story about that place? Where your characters prefer to sit or hide in that setting. The feeling of the space. This might vary by character. Again, these are details you add as you go along. My setting sections for my Bibles tend to be smaller, mainly because I tend to use the same settings over and over again in my story, so I don't need as many setting chapters. I have way more characters than settings. You might also want to include how much time passes over the course of your story, what the different seasons look like, what it looks like when it's day versus night, or something small like where your character carved their initials into their desk at school. I always include a map for my setting sections. That's because I need to visually be able to keep track of where things are. So here's an example of one of those maps of a windowless room in my novel Demon Rider. A map like this really helps me. I need to be able to see where her bed is, where her birdcage is, where the closet and the bathroom are to each other. And I also just need this as a reminder so I don't accidentally forget and move something to the other corner of the room. As you can see, it's a simple little wonky map. Probably no one can read it but me, but that's okay. I'm the only one who's going to see this. Instead of a hand-drawn map, you might use photos if your setting is a real place. You might just list out these details instead of drawing it. Do whatever works for you for your settings. This is notes for you to keep track of your story. Now that you know what the setting chapters look like, I want to share why an editor recommends a series or book Bible. You'll be surprised by what you forget about your stories. If you're in the thick of writing right now, you might be so immersed in your world you can't imagine forgetting anything about it. But after your first book is published, or after you step away from writing that to work on another story with different characters and settings and plots, you'll be surprised by the details you misremember or forget that you mentioned before at all. That's what your book series Bible is for. It's there to help you be consistent so your readers don't get jarred out of the story when something unintentionally changes. In addition to these character and series sections, you might need a technology section if you're writing science fiction, where you list how the technology of your world works and the different aspects that you have mentioned. If you're writing historical fiction, your setting sections might be a lot more in-depth because you're going to include your research there, just in case you need to go back and remind yourself of something. If you're writing fantasy, you might need a section for your magic system. For that Necromancer trilogy, I do have a section for magic. Because the main character, the Necromancer, grows up over the course of the trilogy, I need to know what abilities she had when. I also need to know what a Necromancer is capable of versus what she actually uses. So I have that section of that book series Bible, and it's just little bullet points like before. You might not like the bullet points. Maybe you write full paragraphs. Maybe you cut out the sentence from your book and you paste it into a document and you don't even bother retyping it out. Either way, you've spent all of this time crafting the world and story for your reader, so you owe it to yourself to keep these notes to keep you on track. I know it might seem like some extra work, but trust me, it is worth it. So what's one detail you have included in a story Bible or wish you had that kept you on track? Share it in the comments below. And for more videos on book series and other aspects of writing, subscribe to Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with your readers, because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. To find out more about me, go to www.ignitedinkwriting.com. There you will also find a guide to building strong settings, which will help you develop that aspect of your story and your book series Bible. And now it's your turn to start or add to your book series Bible to ignite your ink.